Hello, welcome back to the first planner video that I've filmed in at least a year probably. Oh no, my chair's squeaky and I bet you're probably going to be able to hear that. Hopefully I'll try not to move around too much, although who knows how successful that will be. But anyway, I had been meaning to film a 1 month in my hobonichi video at the start of the year, and obviously that didn't happen. And now we are just at the start of May, and the stars have finally aligned to film an update on how I've been finding it. I guess if you've been watching my previous planner videos that I used to do a lot more often, you might know that I used to draw out all of my spreads in a Rhodiorama notebook and like completely like design everything myself basically. So I was really free with the order of the pages, the order of the spreads, how everything fit together, and I could kind of adjust that based on how much I was sticking in, things like that. But I guess I got fed up with it. I think I've got like 20-ish completed notebooks of those in various sizes. I started with the A6 maybe, and then moved up to the one that's just a tiny bit smaller than A4, and just wanted a change, like many people in my kind of circle online, probably influenced by Megan Rhiannon and her hobonichi videos. So yeah, I started one this year and really like it, and thought I would talk a bit about the spreads that I've been doing, just because I love to see in other people's planners, and hopefully my friends will like to see what's in mine. So the start, this sticker actually peeled off my old phone case, so it's peeling a little bit. It's from Jeannie J on Etsy, just in case anybody is interested in it. And on the inside cover, I always collect stuff inside here. So just like thank you notes from orders and stickers that friends send me. And this envelope is full of like overflow photos for when I stick those in later. I'm not going to show every page because like my life details are in here, but I'll show an example of most of the spreads that I'm currently using, just out of interest. This is one of Megan Rhiannon's, like I don't know if these count as her gloomies, because this was one of the very first prototypes for like when she first started drawing them, but anyway, that's that stuck in there. So first of all, on this page I use it to track like habits or things that I enjoy doing. Basically the kind of thought process behind this is the more of these I have filled in theory, the better the impact on my life will be, if that makes sense. So it's things like taking photos, making things. Then I use the monthly calendar, like literally just as a calendar. I've censored the stuff that I'm doing because obviously I don't want to be telling people where I'm going to be for the rest of this month. So I tend to use the little highlighted parts at the top for events that are happening on that day, like if there's birthdays. I often note down album releases, and then as I kind of mentioned underneath here, I will write in plans that I have, normally just a very like brief title of the plan and then the time that I'm going, and then I elaborate on that in my weekly spreads. Alongside this edge, I've kind of been doing a different thing every month, but this month I'm happy with how this is kind of summarising the music that I'm listening to this month, and I tend to decorate a little bit kind of based on a theme for that month. Every single month has a different like washi tape and colour associated with it, so that when I'm then on my weekly pages I colour in the like little date section at the top with the corresponding colour to the month, and then if on a weekly page there is like an end of one month and a beginning of the next month, I can differentiate between that better. As you kind of saw on these pages, the colour scheme for the month also corresponds to how I'm filling in each square for these trackers. I guess I didn't really explain that, is that each column is per month, and then down the side here are the days of the month. And I've drawn in these black lines when every week ends, so that's why they're all kind of all over the place, because it is per week rather than per 7 days, if that makes sense. So yeah, colour coding for all of this, and I tend to kind of decorate the page for the upcoming month. You can see like nothing is in June now because we only just started May. Towards kind of like the last 2 weeks of the previous month, I'll start decorating the next month. And then at the bottom of each monthly page, I have trackers for like how much time I spent outside. And again, that's shaded in to a varying degree based on whether I literally just like very briefly went in the garden, whether I kind of like walked around outside, whether I went out somewhere that's not my house but didn't really walk around in the outdoors, and then whether I did an activity that was like an outdoor activity. Then these two for the weather, so sun and blue sky, and that's divided into like 4 quarters of the day, if that makes sense. And then rainy or cloudy, again like the same 4 quarters, so these two will like fit together if you combine those squares. And then at the bottom here is my like part of my like physical therapy, like exercises stuff. So again, I'll shade in the squares based on what I'm doing and when, and that also helps me, like I can flip back through the months and have a overview of not only what I've been doing but also how I've been feeling, because if this is not very filled in, then I've probably not been feeling so great. So it's useful again to have at a glance, keeping track of what I'm doing. I'll often pencil in stuff for the future that isn't like guaranteed. So like I batch cook and freeze quite a lot of foods for myself. So I have like, based on when I last cooked it, I'll count ahead in the next months. So I have one for July even, based on when I'll need to recook that, so that I can prepare that in the future for my routine and like account for the effort that I'm putting in and the like physical tasks that I'll be able to do in the week around that, if that makes sense. So for here I've got making a casserole, and I know that then I need to make sure that I don't kind of book anything for the next couple of days because I will be too tired. So that I think is most of the month overview. It's decorated a little bit. This is a Mossery sticker. These are Megan Rhiannon's stickers. This was from Etsy, but I don't remember where, and I buy all my washi tapes on Etsy as well. So then it's the weekly pages. This is this week, so I thought I would give an idea of what a week in progress looks like, and then also a completed week and also a fresh week. So I don't use the times of day that are written along each column. I literally just fill it in, not even prioritised, it's just like I have set tasks for each day and I will fill those in any order basically. Along this extra kind of notes column, I have what I refer to as a running list, but I don't know if it officially is what that is, if that makes sense. So it's basically like a square where along the top is the days of the week, along the bottom is various chores, and then where those intersect I mark off like blank squares, so I know that I will be doing like these 3 tasks on Friday. And then as I do them, I either colour them in halfway if I've started them and not finished them, or the full way if I've finished them. And then if I plan to do something but don't end up doing it, I'll have a little arrow to kind of indicate whether I did it. Maybe I did it early, so it will point backwards, or maybe I did it late, so I'll be kind of allocating that to a different day. And then along the bottom of the page, again, I have my corresponding washi tape to the month, and along the top is the corresponding like colour for that month. I have a few things that I don't necessarily try to do each day, but tend to keep track of anyway. So things like talking with friends, making things, and like going outside. It's all things that, like, a lot of the goals in my book are aimed at like keeping on top of physical health and mental health, because obviously, well, not obviously if you don't know, but I'm disabled in like various ways. So they're things that I kind of need to actively keep on top of rather than passively like taking for granted, if that makes sense. So as I go through various planners, I'll set different goals for myself as to what I think will be most useful for me to be focusing on, like, in life overall. So then I just draw a like half a line if I feel like I've done it a bit, or a full line if I feel like I really did it. Again though, pretty much everything that I set in here isn't particularly strict. It's more of a guideline for what I'd ideally like to do, and like the things like this, like, it doesn't matter if I haven't done them at all. It's just a useful kind of correlating data to have, so I can compare stuff like this and how many tasks I've shifted or actually done when I plan to, and things like my mood trackers at the start to figure out, like, it helps me keep an eye on when things are going wrong or when things are particularly going well, so I know what to focus on and what I need to kind of change. So you can see now, because it's Thursday, things are partially filled in. The days before are all filled in, and all of the boxes for the rest of the week aren't shaded in as complete yet. I normally decorate each week, each day of the week, with a different theme based on just the vibes, I guess. I just like to have something decorative, and I guess also another thing I try to do is just make things as like fun or nice as I can. So like, I'll often write a smiley face after the tasks on here, and it just helps me to like focus on positive things, I guess, or at least neutral things. So if I'm like, sometimes I'll smiley face a task that I like, or sometimes it'll be something that I'm like not really feeling. I just try to be as encouraging as I can, like a note here to myself, let's have a good week. I try to be encouraging and like nice to myself about things. So this was last week. You can see it gets a bit more chaotic as things get filled in, and also each month I go through the previous month's worth of photographs on my phone and print out all of the ones that I want to save, and I'll occasionally stick them into the weekly spreads. I always stick in my sketchbook spreads to the corresponding day, but I'll occasionally stick in like other photos, normally overflow from the daily pages, which I'll show later. This is something, like, one of the worst bits about the hobonichis for me is that I would much prefer if they were more similar to A4 sized rather than A5 being the largest you can get, because I always have printed out my photos to stick in at a 4cm width, and these columns are about 3cm wide. But if you print the whole photo out at 3cm, you can't really see the detail in, like, for my eyesight anyway, enough to warrant sticking that in. So it's a bit disappointing for me, like, obviously not in a mattering to anybody else kind of way, but I used to really decorate my weekly spreads, and I didn't even have daily spreads before. So this would be all of my kind of like visual records of what happens per day. So I would fill out a lot of these with like what plants are blooming at that time, and like the status of the seasons is my like main thing that I take photos of and just like to see. So that's kind of was kind of disappointing for me that I can't really do that in a way that I like, but I made up for that by switching up how I use the pages a little bit and putting those on my daily spreads as well. So yeah, that's an example of a fully finished spread. And then before the next week has started, every Thursday basically, I set up my planner like this. I just realised I forgot to put these little bits in, but I'll do that later. So I set up everything that I know is going to happen next week. and then as the days progress I will add more stuff in. Sometimes I do like add tasks to like the next day or future days, and sometimes I will on the same day just write a note of stuff that I'm doing that just happens to come up. And having it in a weekly spread like this is the most compatible with my brain kind of having an idea of what's going on and being able to kind of visualise how the days fit together. I've always used, well, actually that's not true, not always, but for a lot of my previous notebooks, I think I've been using planners since like 2017 maybe. The weekly spread has, for the majority of that time, been the most kind of valuable for me, along with the monthly spread, because that gives me a better idea of where I struggle a lot with energy levels, and being able to do activities like consequentially? Like in a sequence, basically. Sequentially, there we go. It helps me to have a week like this so I can get an overview at more of a glance how tasks are spreading out. And in combination with this running list sort of thing as well, especially, I can assign my like bulk chores throughout the week with spaces in between them, enough for me to rest and recover to be able to do the next stuff. Although, as you saw on this week, I will shift things forward or backwards depending on how much energy I have and how much ability I have to complete the things that I would like and need to do. I think that's probably everything for the weekly pages, although I know that when I'm editing this I will think of something else that I meant to mention. I guess onto the daily pages. So for my daily pages, these are basically, I used to use two notebooks in tandem, one Moseri planner and my Rhodia notebook that I drew out to be a more similar layout to this. And being as hobonichi is so expensive, I figured out how to combine both into one place, so that I only needed to buy one book, although the cousin avec, which I use, is 2 6-month books, which I need because they're already bulking up quite a bit. You can see the first 4 months. So on these pages I basically fill in the text at the end of each day, and then at the end of each month I go back and backfill the photos into the corresponding days. Or like on this day there were 8 main photos that I wanted to put on this date, but only 2 from the day before, so I just kind of overfilled it basically. So for these trackers I write in a list of things that I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I don't know if you can read the text because it's probably not anything private, hopefully. But these are all very like small things. Like I tried to take 2 parts of it basically. There's not a lot of exciting things I do in my daily life because, like I mentioned, I'm disabled, so I can't really do a lot. Most of life is just like keeping on top of my house and physical health stuff, and then fitting in any hobbies into any space and energy that I have left in between the kind of necessary things. So I try to pick things out from every day, even if it's the most like boring, mundane things, because if I only looked forward to like big, huge events, there would be like 3 per year or something like that. So the things I'm looking forward to tomorrow are like, from this day it was like reading more of a book, things like listening to music whilst doing housework, very basic stuff, but that is kind of the foundation that I'm trying to build for myself, being happy with how things are in the everyday rather than kind of pinning my hopes on stuff that is less attainable for myself. Then I do a little row of things that were nice about the day. So it can be things, again, like as small as talking with friends, or on this day I went to the Botanic Gardens because one of my goals for the year was to take photos of the ducklings, and I managed to achieve that, which was nice. So again, worth kind of documenting in here. Then in the middle I have a line that in my head I call keeping on an upwards trajectory. So these are kind of things that I maybe challenge myself to do is a strong way of putting it, but things that may take more effort but will be things that help me move in a direction that I want to be moving in. So things today, on this day even, it was going to the Botanic Gardens by myself. On this one it was to say yes to a Zoom invite from my friend, which I really wanted to do but was intimidating to me, so that was kind of noting down when I do things that push myself to some degree but within a kind of sustainable level, if that makes sense. And then a line of things that I'm grateful for, so like being able to go to places, being able to drive, and my parents on this page. Then in this chunk it's just kind of a record of the main things that I did in that day. So on the right hand side is a note of how many steps I did that day. Again, that's like this whole section actually is based around keeping track of my activity levels and how that corresponds with all of the other things that I record to try to keep on top of my health and disability stuff. So these on this side is like basically literally the activities that I do, so like stretches, going out, doing a bit of housework. On this day I had to lie down for a while in the afternoon, doing my housework stuff, spending time on my laptop, which is noted from a like eye strain and concentration point of view, and then like finishing my housework stuff and doing stretches. And when I note down housework, I mean stuff as small as like emptying the dishwasher or things like that. All of these things are significant to me in my kind of daily abilities, so they all get recorded on here. And then in this kind of top corner I note down stuff related to sleep, so if I had to like go and lie down, or if I set my alarm for a bit later in the morning, stuff like that. And then on this side there's kind of an invisible line kind of ruled down here, which again, like I kind of completely ignore most of the formatting that Hobonichi have put into their like very beautifully planned pages, but I do use this line to kind of chop this section in half. So on the left I note like, I think I've referred to them as like daily hassles before, although that's not necessarily accurate. These are kind of things that I did that I think were good of me to do, if that makes sense, and often had some sort of strenuous component to them, whether that's like emotionally strenuous or physically, or took a lot of like determination to do if I'm struggling with executive functioning and things like that. So I mentioned before that I do this at the end of the day, like literally just before I'm about to go to sleep, and it really helps me to feel better about the day, even if I had gone to bed feeling like I did kind of a bad job at being a person in that day. It really helps me to have a honest but also positive kind of summary of things. So I'm writing down things that are true, but like, for example, these lists aren't things that I hated today or things that went badly. I'm kind of focusing on the effort that I'm putting in, and any like nice feelings that I had, even if they're really, really tiny, they're all significant for me, building up a kind of what can be quite monotonous daily life where I can't really leave the house much or do very many fun activities. It's all about kind of building the best kind of foundation for myself as I can, if that makes sense. So one thing I wanted to mention about these pages is that I showed how bulky this is, and a kind of mistake that I only just noticed I could remedy this month is that I have been sticking all of my photos in the bottom half of the pages, when from my next book or from now onwards I'm going to alternate between the top half and the bottom half, so that then when I'm writing in my weekly spreads or even in my daily spreads, it isn't kind of really bulky here and really flat here, And also in terms of alignment, if I only have 2 photos, changing up where I stick those 2 photos so that I'm not, for example, putting all of them here and then this part of the book will be really bulky and this part will be really flat. The same with the washi tape on my weekly pages as well. So the ones that I flipped between this week and next week, the washi tape is at completely the bottom of the page. But previously, for all the other months, I had it separating this section of trackers at the bottom. And that means that, again, this bit is quite bulky. Well, this side is the place where it's bulky. And there's a dip on either side of it. Whereas I think if I put it here, then that will impact the rest of the page less as I go through the book. So from the start of May, I'm going to be writing in the bottom section and putting photos, if I take photos, in the top, and I'll alternate that every month for the 6 months of the book. I think the only other main pages I have to talk about are how I use the notes pages. So at these ones at the back, I have a list of the books that I've read and the date that I read them. And then at the front on these pages is a list of the things that I'm watching and the dates that I started and finished watching those. Other than that, I don't use any of the pages in the back, apart from I've just been sticking like post-it notes that I take notes on in there so that I have them saved somewhere. The other kind of additions that I made to this book are to stick a pen loop in the back. And I also made this, I don't know if it's called like an accordion envelope, but my previous notebooks have always come with a like an envelope in the back that you can collect stuff in, and I always do use that. So I like made my own for both of the 6-month hobonichis. And like I said, a pen loop, I specifically put this at the top because this is an A5 book. There's not as much space in it, obviously, and I didn't want the loop at the side to be annoying when I was writing, because I'm already limited by like the small size of it. Your hand like falls off it more for more of the page than it would if you were using like an A4 book. So I put that at the top, and I also made a little ribbon bookmark just with a turtle shaped, who's this guy? Paperclip that I can slot in to mark where my daily page is, so that I can find that easily. And in the front covers of like both of like all of my books, I just stick in stuff that I have left over. So like if I cut the edges off washi tape when I'm decorating my pages, when I collect like pretty envelopes or order like slips from any art that I order or things like that. I guess that kind of reminds me of the other thing that I don't love about these is the lack of notes pages, or because it's already all printed, obviously, the lack of flexibility in where stuff goes. In my previous books, I would like insert a lot more stuff in between like the weekly and daily spreads, with a lot more photos that I collected and a lot more like things that I just pick up. I'm trying to think of examples, but it is kind of just like printed matter, I guess, or like postcards or stuff like that, that I could slot in. And there are only a very few note pages at the back here, so like it's not enough for me to like fully use to stick stuff in, so I just haven't been doing it at all. I do have a separate notebook that I've been using for it, but it's not the same not having it all in one place. So I think I've got to think a bit more creatively about that, how to kind of overcome that in my next book. Something that I did used to do before was to, like, it was nothing as grand as bookbinding, but I used to like sew, I'd rip out a couple of pages from a like donor notebook basically, cut them so they were a little bit smaller than the size of my planner, and then sew down the middle of the like leaves of pages so that I had like a small pamphlet that I would then stick stuff onto. And then I would use like embroidery thread I'd like sandwich the sewn together pages in the middle of a spread like this, and then I would like loop embroidery thread round like this and then tie it like on the back of the spine, so that I had like maybe like 6 or 7 of these like inserted pamphlets as I flipped through, and then that just give me a lot more room for collecting stuff and including it. But I haven't done that yet in the 4 months that I've been using this one, so maybe I'll figure that out for the next like 6-month section of the hobonichi. The other thing as well I guess I'll mention is that it's really ugly, but I use a sloped writing desk whenever I write, because of my like pain issues and stuff like that. And the back of the hobonichi is like just regular notebook, so it's really slippery, and that meant that it kept slipping on my writing surface that I used. I guess some covers that you can get would overcome that if they have more friction, but first of all, I only use my notebook at home, so even though it's a little bit beat up like around the corners and stuff like that, it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't need to be particularly hardy, and also they're so expensive, so I was just not going to buy a cover for it. So my overcoming of that is using bike bar tape that you use to wrap the handlebars for grip. Just a couple of strips of that stuck onto the back. It has like an adhesive strip down the middle so that when you wrap it, it kind of overlaps. But for a friction kind of sticker for a notebook, it works perfectly, so that I can use this on a sloped surface and like it doesn't slip around very easily, whereas like the front just completely does slide. So there's a tip if there's anybody else like me that needs your notebook to have more friction. You can get this stuff in like a billion colours and you can get like nice designs. I just went for the cheapest one. So yeah, I think that's basically everything. I guess I could show you my next one. I haven't started this one yet or stuck the tape on the back, but I have slightly decorated it with a ginkgo sticker, a corresponding contrasting even orange to the blue, where I did lilac for the kind of greeny yellow for the last one, and then I made the like accordion folder as well for it. I don't have a tutorial for this because I literally just looked at my old notebook and the like pocket that it came with and engineered my own out of paper that I had. This is actually the delivery box from the Mossery journals that I used to have that I saved because this blue is like basically my favourite colour. So yeah, you can just use card and like double-sided tape, or I guess maybe glue, and then it's pretty neat and keeps things tidy. So I guess you can see as well the difference in size between the two. I have to really hold this one closed because it's so, like, you can see where the photos all line up, where it's bulky in the middle and like thin still at the edge. But I like the wear on them and I think they look nice together. I mean, I could probably talk for a million more years, but that's, I think, the gist of it. If you have any questions about stuff that I briefly mentioned or just explained poorly or didn't mention at all, let me know and I will answer them if I can, / it's not private. But I'm like generally quite happy to answer questions about stuff. And I guess that's it. I don't really remember how I used to end videos, so I hope you're doing okay, and I'll see you at some point.